Entry 2. Plastic. Another day, another mission. What a weird day today was. It was extremely weird. I need to stop saying weird. It's weird. Damn it, I did it again. Anyway, today was a long day. I'm not even quite sure what happened today. Well, as always, it's good to start at the beginning. It was around 5 in the morning when Cassie decided to wake us all up for a mission. It was a bit early for that, honestly, and Canopy and I had suspicions that this was either really important or that Cassie had misread the mission file like so many times before. Turns out we were right. The mission called for us to wake at 9, not 5. Nobody ever knows how Cassie manages to read numbers wrong, but she does. None of us got any more sleep, and we went to burning time. I read old mission files, Canopy went to writing his book, Cassie went off for a run along the beach, and Quint, our doctor, just sort of stared at us. That's 4 people, and I told you before we had 5 on the team. The last person on our team is named Grayson Stone, but we all call him Priest. He's an oddity on the team, but we all get along well. He's a bit absent-minded and aloof, and he makes a point to pray for us on our missions. He likes to crack these weird jokes where he calls Jesus Jesus, but overall he's a great guy. According to my own personal investigation into him, I was curious, okay? I discovered he was a pastor at some church out in some small town. His town had been plagued with mysterious corpses where victims had lost their faces, not cut off, but just smooth, like a mannequin's. The priest was off teaching some students the wonders of Jesus, so nobody's seen much of him. Once we all killed time and 9 o'clock arrived, Cassie sprang to action and we began the day. According to the file, she began, today we are tasked with exploring an area of forest that strange events occur. A town bordering the forest reports strange noises at night, mysterious lights, and loud thumping outside their houses when nothing's there. Are we interviewing people? Quint asked. Yes, one of you will, and the other 2 will be exploring the forest, Cassie informed. I call interviews, I yelled. No, Quint will be dealing with that, Cassie countered. Quint has a certain effect over people that you don't have. Is that an insult or a compliment? Quint joked. So me and Rainey are exploring? Canopy questioned. We may get lost. The Watchtower Central Command has developed these, suits that are meant to repel time displacement and deter magic, or so they say. Fun. Gotta rely on the Watchtower. Well, let's go. Cassie told us to take our sedatives so we would be transported to the location. We weren't allowed to know where it was, so I couldn't tell you even if I wanted to. But the world shifted from the black of sleep to this pretty town, all covered in this thick blanket of white, pure snow. It seemed like those towns from those old fantasy novels brought to life, complete with shops that were painted to look old and rich. Quint bid us farewell and went off to interview the residents. Cassie gave me and Canopy the rules to the forest and told us to explore. According to it, we were basically to explore and document any weird happenings. Rule number 1. Enter the forest with the suit on. It will activate when you wear it, and green lights will turn on and off that tell you it is active. If no flashing lights appear, say the word Kaltasa and it will turn on. Do not let the suit run out of battery. It has 3 phases of battery life. Green for full, orange for medium, and last, red for critical. When it reaches red, leave. Rule number 2. You may encounter flashing lights in the trees, just out of the corner of your eyes. It won't be noticeable at first, but the lights may start to become more noticeable over time. You may take photos of the lights. If you see the lights in the center of your vision, do not follow them. Rule number 3. You may hear thumping occasionally, like a large beast is approaching. Record these sounds. Accompanying the thumping will be noises of a large animal. The noises may go towards you, but nothing will happen. Rule number 4. There may be a strange cabin in the woods. If this building appears, document it as best as possible. No set of rules exist for this building, so take caution. Rule number 5. You may hear loved ones calling out to you inside the forest. Do not follow them. Do not listen to the mushrooms. Do not pick the mushrooms." "These rules seem fun," I murmured. "Ready to go?" "Let's move out," Canopy cheered, checking his suit to make sure it was active. As soon as we entered the forest, we heard the noises of the town become muffled, growing quieter by each step into the forest. Soon we couldn't hear anything at all. "We're in," I radioed Cassie. No response. "I repeat, we're in," I repeated. No answer. We assumed that we were either on radio silence or it was the forest messing with us. The forest, however, was amazing. It was a marvel, beauty bursting at every point and edge. The birds were colorful, chirping and dancing in the trees, all happy and in the wild. Canopy noted that some of the birds were classified as extinct in the wild, and that some of the birds couldn't have been able to thrive in the forest. As we walked deeper into the forest, I noted that it was getting hotter, a strange contrast from the snowy village. We began to see mushrooms everywhere. These weren't like any I had ever seen before. These were the colors of flesh, a tan color with bits of reds and blues dotted all over them. I bent down to take a photo and inspect the thing, and then I realized I could hear something from it. Voices. It was Cassie's voice, saying, "Don't listen to it," Canopy warned, reminding me of the rules. I knew the rules, but the voice, it sounded so pleading, mesmerizing. It was like hearing an exact replica of Cassie, but instead of what I thought of her. I took some more photos with the aid of Canopy, and that's when it hit me. The mushroom was shaped like a mouth, and it seemed to slightly move, vibrate, talk. We continued deeper into the forest where it became more misty and humid, like tropical rainforests. There were no birds here, oddly, but there should have been. Instead, we found lizards and other reptiles covering the place. Everywhere we stepped, it seemed, a snake or a lizard would dart out of the way to avoid us crushing it. There were flowers on the trees, which I had noticed were thicker than the edges of the forest. They seemed darker and more full of life. Once I was inspecting one when I was surprised by parts of the bark changing colors and revealing a chameleon that hid far too well. It was magnificent. We explored further, but I started seeing the lights, just always out of the corner of my eye. They were flashes that always seemed to linger a little too long, and they were just bright enough to be annoying, but easy enough to forget. Canopy snapped a picture of the environment, and when we reviewed it, we saw that around the edges there was a dozen or so orbs of light just twinkling. With the strange lights came the loud thumping of a strange beast from afar, and the loud peaceful moans it made into the bright hot air. It seemed like a gentle beast, or at least it sounded like one. Slowly we heard the thumps grow louder, and the space between each thump got shorter, until it became this rhythmic beat, a calculated stampede heading towards us. The peaceful song the faraway beast was singing reminded me of a whale song. We heard it soon disappear, but luckily I had recorded the entire event. Later, however, with the help of an old colleague who worked in marine biology, I found out that it was indeed some sort of whale song. But what confused me the most was it appeared to be a song of panic, of fear. Canopy wanted to find out where the beast had come from, and at the time I agreed. I wish I had known the beast, or whatever the thing was afraid of something. We first noticed that the world had become eerily quiet when the trees had started to become thin and pale like skeletons. Next, I was drinking out of my bottle of water when we reached a clearing where it snowed. As I was drinking, one of the falling particles ended up in my canteen, and when I drank, I found it salty and distasteful. So salty, in fact, that I threw up. Canopy let me drink out of his bottle, as he collected the falling salt for evidence. The salt was cold, impossibly so. The trees behind us were warm, so the salt should have caused the trees to die. In the center of the clearing was a cabin that I realized hadn't been there when we first looked at the clearing. A loud buzz emanated from our suits, and the flashing lights we wore turned a dark orange, signaling that we had used half of our battery. "Let's explore the cabin," Canopy suggested. "We heard the thumps come from there, and the rules said to explore." Are you sure?" I warned. "It just popped up out of nowhere." "That's why we have these suits." I shrugged. We headed towards the cabin, taking salt samples as we went. Later, we found out the closer we got to the structure, the saltier the salt was. Our doctor and scientist, Quint Magnus, could find no explanation for it. The cabin's door was closed, but when we both looked away to take a sample, it was open when we looked back, inviting us in. Canopy grabbed the trusty army knife he carried with him, and I took a pistol from my backpack. Canopy used his army knife's flashlight to light the way, and inside we saw a living room oddly clean and new. It was just like the house we had investigated yesterday, and knowing that sent chills up my spine. A fire was lit, but somehow it didn't seem to produce light. Where wood should have been were these blocks of salt. Or, we found out later, solidified salt mixed with plastic. There were 2 chairs facing it, a red one and a gray one. A clean cushion was on it, as well as a messy left-behind blanket. We took a photo and continued exploring the cabin. Excluding the living room, there were only 2 bedrooms and a kitchen. First, we explored the kitchen, a small little place with some newly sharpened knives and food. There was freshly baked bread on the counter next to the sink, but when we touched it, we realized it wasn't food at all, but plastic. So incredibly detailed, it seemed like food. The knives weren't sharp either, rather like the food, plastic. So were the apples and oranges. When we turned on the sink, this black, slimy liquid came out. It was crude oil, and crude oil is one of the ingredients used to make plastic. Still, we ignored the warning signs and explored one of the rooms. Inside, we saw a child's bedroom. There wasn't much, but a toy chest and some books that weren't books. These too were fake, plastic. A computer was next to it, fake, but stuck on the screen was a bunch of symbols. Canopy and I took a photo, hoping that Cassie could crack it if it was a code. We were about to leave when I saw a strand of something underneath the child's bed. It was hair, or so it seemed. Canopy tugged at me to leave, but then he noticed it too, and the 2 of us just stared at it. And then we noticed it wasn't just hair. There was a silhouette of a person underneath the bed, hiding. Slowly we backed out, turning to see the living room and exit. Only something very bad had changed. In the 2 seats were people. No, mannequins. They sat as if they were people, unmoving but still harboring an eerie lifelike quality to them. We froze, watching the room. In the kitchen, which was visible, we saw 2 other mannequins that seemed to be frozen in time, chopping fake vegetables. When we looked back at the living room, it appeared that the not people had shifted, not turning to look at us. And instead of 2, there were now 3 faceless things just staring at us. Faceless. Canopy bolted for the exit, grabbing my hand before he did, and causing me to run with him. As we reached the exit, I was jerked back and felt cold plastic hands on the back of my neck. Fingers were rustling through my hair, but when I looked and turned to fight who or what had grabbed me, nothing was there. The living room didn't even have the mannequins anymore, just 2 chairs facing away from us towards the fire. Except I noticed one odd detail. The 2 chairs, red and gray, were switched. Our suits buzzed and we saw its battery go to red. We wasted no time in running back the way we came. When we reached the exit, we saw Cassie and Quint joking around. They turned to face us, to greet us, when they saw our faces pale and out of breath. We all decided to leave immediately and return to Watchtower 7-C. I'm not sure what's going on, but I do know one thing. A key constant in the 2 cases I've shared so far: plastic.